The most dangerous woman is ready to rule the UFC. Dakota Ditcheva.
Is going to be unbelievable.
12 brutal knockouts, 93% finishing rate, and a pile of 13 lifeless bodies left behind her. Dakota Ditcheva is the definition of a fighter who doesn't take prisoners. This 26-year-old British-Bulgarian, who hasn't even reached her prime yet, boasts an undefeated 14-0 record, with each of her fights being one-sided pounding, where she was the one swinging the hammer. With the PFL women's division already conquered and a UFC championship seeming inevitable, it's the perfect time to recall every time Dakota Ditcheva played with her enemies' lives, all the way to the top.
Dangerous! Dakota Ditcheva!
Born on July 25, 1998, in Sale, Greater Manchester, Dakota Ditcheva was practically raised in a fight camp. With a mother like Lisa Howarth, a multiple-time world kickboxing champion, and a father, Ivo Ditchev, originally from Samokov, Bulgaria, combat sports weren't just a choice, they were in her DNA. She started young, sharpening her skills in kickboxing and Muay Thai before adding Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to her arsenal. And before she even stepped into MMA, Dakota had already stacked up championship wins in kickboxing and Muay Thai. Proud of her dual heritage, she waves both the English and Bulgarian flags, embracing the best of both worlds. By the time she made her MMA debut on April 10, 2021 against Jenny Line, Ditcheva was already a battle-tested veteran with dozens of fights in the kickboxing ring, and her entry into MMA was like throwing a shark into a fish tank. From the opening seconds, Dakota showed the gap between herself and the rest of the contenders. She worked the body and head diligently and chopped her foe's leg like a tree. But then she went all in like a poker player betting their house on the final hand, blasting the opposition with heavy elbows to the head. The unlucky opponent sought refuge in the clinch, but was now subjected to bone-breaking knees before Ditcheva dragged her prey into the dirt. Jenny Line got back to her feet, but a spinning elbow followed by a knee was the last straw that broke the camel's back. The hard-hitting British-Bulgarian decided to improve her MMA record further and accepted a fight against Carrie Isom next, who had a solid amateur record of 8-1 at the time of their clash. The opponent initiated a brawl, which Dakota gladly accepted. A sniper-precise front kick to the face forced the foe to retreat against the cage, where Dakota picked her apart with shots. And before she recovered, Ditcheva served her an extra dose of punishment. The British-Bulgarian was a real pit bull in the clinch, tearing her prey apart with strikes. A straight left from Dakota discouraged the foe from keeping the fight standing, so she went for a takedown. Soon after, Ditcheva rained down punishment in the clinch without giving her opponent space to breathe. As the fight went on, the clinch became Dakota's domain, and she ruled like a tyrant. Moments later, she decided to tame her unruly opponent with a takedown, and once the hard-hitting maestro started punishing her foe from the top, it was GG, well played. The British-Bulgarian wanted to finish 2021 with a bang, so she found herself in action against dangerous Brazilian Patricia Borges. Borges was aware of the danger on the feet, so she stuck to Dakota harder than a creep to an OnlyFans model. She clinched so much, one would assume she was a Dagestani. They took the battle to the trenches, where Patricia was crafting submissions from the bottom, while Ditcheva pounded her with punches from the top. Eventually, the British-Bulgarian secured a dominant position and started to rain down elbows from the top. The referee was left with no choice but to jump in for the rescue. The following year, Ditcheva was matched against Simone da Silva, a battle-tested veteran with over 20 bouts under her belt. Dakota didn't waste time with appetizers and went straight to the main course. Once on the floor, the British-Bulgarian showed that she was no stranger to submissions and was looking for a triangle. She switched to an armbar, but the bell turned out to be Silva's ally. Moments into the second round, Ditcheva bulldozed her opponent to the mat like a demolition crew on overtime. After a few scrambles, they were back on their feet, and Ditcheva was more than happy to introduce her foe to her signature knee and elbow combo before the referee waved the fight off. The next opponent, Paula Christina, was the first and only woman to survive Dakota's onslaught and hear the final bell. However, the British-Bulgarian dominated her so thoroughly that the judges might as well have clocked out early. Being 5-0 at this point, the hard-hitting British-Bulgarian finally appeared on the PFL's radar. And when the big league called, there were no second thoughts. Dakota Ditcheva made her PFL debut on August 20, 2022, against the 4-1 Hasna Gaber, who promised to offer some resistance. The opponent started throwing haymakers, but Dakota was too experienced to fall for any of them. The British-Bulgarian showcased her brute strength by delivering a counter right hand, followed by a push kick that sent her opponent down to the canvas. Once in the clinch, Ditcheva attacked Hasna's liver in Hannibal Lecter style, and the Moroccan fighter said no mas. Dakota's PFL debut went splendidly, and she was hungry for more. Next on her hit list was Catherine Corginas, an undefeated American with a 100% finishing rate. Her opponent went on the offensive, and Dakota gladly accepted the exchange. From the clinch, Ditcheva muscled her opponent down to the floor. The British-Bulgarian welcomed Catherine back to her feet, but not before driving in a couple of shots and peppering her with kicks. They found themselves in the clinch again, and Dakota turned on her body shredder as usual. Sensing victory, she went for the finish, leaving her opponent on the floor frozen like Elsa. This flawless performance set the stage for the 2023 PFL Europe Women's Flyweight Tournament, where Dakota Ditcheva was scheduled to face the Herminator, Malin Hermansson. The British-Bulgarian probed Malin's defenses before taking the battle to her own realm, the clinch. From there, she unleashed deadly knees to the body. Ditcheva decided to draw her opponent into murky waters, where she rained down with elbows. Out of desperation, Malin laid her head on the chopping block, and Ditcheva did not hesitate. She wrapped the rope around her neck and sent her straight to the gallows. Dakota Ditcheva just shocked the world. From a deadly striker, she transformed into quite the Royce Gracie on the canvas. On September 30th, 2023, Dakota Ditcheva faced Cornelia Holm in the semifinal of the 2023 PFL Europe Women's Flyweight Tournament, a bout that proved to be one of the most grueling challenges of her career. Early in the fight, Dakota's inside leg kick deterred Holm from trading powerful strikes on the feet, prompting the Swedish fighter to attempt a takedown that led to an extended battle in the clinch. Aware of Dakota's striking power, Holm spent much of the first round controlling her against the cage. However, Ditcheva eventually broke free, punishing Holm's midsection with vicious knees. As the second round kicked off, Dakota lured Holm into a trap and unleashed a calculated offensive, forcing Holm into another clinch in an effort to survive. But as the pressure mounted, Holm's energy began to fade, leaving her unable to complete any takedowns. By the end of the second round, it was evident that Holm would enter the final frame with little left in the tank. In the third round, Dakota patiently observed Holm's defenses, waiting for her moment to strike with precision. When she did, Holm was dropped to the canvas. Dakota's final kick aimed high, missing its intended target, but the relentless attack was more than enough to secure the victory. In the tournament final, Dakota was matched against Italy's rising star, Valentina Scatizzi. Scatizzi came out aggressively, but Dakota quickly answered with a series of sharp strikes and 2 consecutive front kicks. When the Italian rushed in, she was met with punishing knees from the clinch. Scatizzi attempted a takedown, but Dakota's defense was impenetrable. She not only blocked the attempt, but responded with more knees. Ditcheva then landed a thunderous right hand, continuing her dominant performance. In the clinch, Dakota unleashed a barrage of knees reminiscent of legendary Thai fighters, and the first round ended with a front kick to Scatizzi's face. By this point, the damage to Scatizzi was severe, and the doctor was forced to stop the fight after assessing her injuries. With this dominant showing, Dakota Ditcheva captured the 2023 PFL Europe Women's Flyweight Tournament title. On April 4, 2024, the hard-hitting British-Bulgarian was set to lock horns with the 6'3" Lisa Malden. Ditcheva drew first blood and unleashed ballistic missiles to the head. Dakota worked her in the clinch, but surprisingly, her opponent executed a beautiful judo throw that would make even Makhachev envious. However, once back on their feet, Ditcheva supplied the Liver King production line with a new source of material. Lisa fell in agony, crouching down like an armadillo. She stood up again, only to be intercepted by Dakota's grenades, and after falling to the canvas once more, the referee had seen enough. The next woman to step in was Chelsea Hackett, a dangerous striker with 23 kickboxing bouts under her belt. A picture-perfect 1-2 combo from Dakota dropped her opponent to the canvas. The foe hurried to get back to her feet, but now had to contend with Ditcheva's merciless knees in the clinch. From that point on, Ditcheva stayed in control as her opponent stoically absorbed everything thrown at her, until the referee stepped in to end the torture seminar. This masterpiece of a performance granted Dakota her golden ticket to the 2024 PFL Women's Flyweight Tournament semifinal, where she was scheduled to face the 7-1 Jenna Bishop. Once Dakota got a hold of Jenna, she couldn't shake her off with a crowbar, and the British-Bulgarian brutalized her with her signature weapon in the clinch. The unlucky woman was hoping for a battle in the trenches, but Dakota welcomed her in the open field. Then she steered her victim into an ambush and pulled the trigger, ending her suffering in the first round. This victory was a prelude to the final battle in the tournament's finale, where the striking maestro stood face-to-face with Talia Santos, a UFC veteran and former title challenger who gave Valentina Shevchenko one of the hardest fights of her career. The Brazilian was not ready to play Russian roulette with Dakota, and a textbook combo from Ditcheva forced her to take the fight to the clinch. However, the British-Bulgarian wrestled her to the ground like a lion dragging down a gazelle. They eventually ended up back on their feet, and Ditcheva launched an atomic front kick to the face, before unleashing a barrage of strikes to the head. The first round ended, but entering a second round with this British-Bulgarian could hardly be called a salvation. The Brazilian attempted to close the distance, but she was intercepted by Dakota's anti-missile defense system. Ditcheva broke the clinch and retaliated with heavy blows to the head that hurt her opponent badly. With flat tires, the opponent became a sitting duck for punishing blows. The British-Bulgarian did not let her adversary off the hook and hurried to call an ambulance, but not for herself. The women's PFL had a new uncontested queen at the top of the hierarchy, and her name was Dakota Ditcheva. With this victory, Ditcheva became the youngest champion in PFL history and the first British female MMA world champion. Dakota Ditcheva picks her shots like a surgeon, with each strike packed with enough force to break bones and crack chins. As she reigns undefeated, facing little resistance, the question arises, will Dakota Ditcheva become one of the most dominant female fighters of all time, alongside legends like Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko, and Amanda Nunes? With every opponent she bulldozes through, a future in the UFC seems almost inevitable. And with that, one thing is clear, she won't stop until she has the UFC belt wrapped around her waist. If you enjoyed the video, front kick that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join the Dialed In MMA Club today.